Welcome to 10-Minute Zuimonki. Dōgen taught, saying, "You will not accomplish much through extensive study or by immersing yourself in the reading of texts. Set such pursuits aside without hesitation, and instead devote yourselves to this one thing alone, the practice of the Buddha way. Learn what deserves your careful attention by drawing upon the examples of the ancients, and follow in the footsteps of those who came before you. Give yourselves wholeheartedly to this single practice. But do not try to look like a teacher or like someone who has already completed the path." Today's passage is surprisingly short, but it carries a warning that is just as relevant today as it was 800 years ago. Dōgen says, "You will not accomplish much through extensive study or by immersing yourself in the reading of texts." At first glance, these words can sound almost anti-intellectual. They may even seem strange coming from Dōgen, one of the greatest Buddhist writers in history. After all, he studied for years, he read countless Buddhist scriptures, and he left behind one of the richest bodies of writing in all of Zen. So what does he mean? He certainly isn't saying that books are useless. Dōgen is pointing to something much more subtle. Knowledge by itself does not transform us. You can read every book on meditation and never become calm. You can memorize Buddhist philosophy and still be ruled by anger, fear, and self-centeredness. You can explain impermanence beautifully while living as though everything will last forever. Information is not the same as practice. Understanding is not the same as realization. That is why Dōgen tells his monks to devote yourselves to this thing alone, the practice of the Buddha way. Practice comes first. Understanding grows out of practice, not the other way round. This doesn't mean we should stop reading. Reading can inspire us. It can clarify our direction. It can prevent misunderstandings. But reading should always support practice, never replace it. There is a real danger in confusing the map with the journey. Imagine someone who spends years studying maps of mountain trails. They know every path, every summit, every river crossing. They can explain the route better than anyone else. But they never actually leave home. Would we say they know the mountain? Probably not. The same is true of Buddhist practice. Reading about awakening is not awakening. Reading about compassion is not compassion. And reading about Zazen is not Zazen. At the end of the passage, Dōgen gives another piece of advice that is just as important. He says, "Do not try to look like a teacher or like someone who has already completed the path." This may be the most striking sentence in the entire passage. Notice that Dōgen doesn't simply say, "Do not pretend to be enlightened." He says, "Don't try to look like a teacher." Why? Because the desire to appear accomplished is another form of self-attachment. We all like to appear knowledgeable. We enjoy being seen as experienced, as someone others can admire. Today, this temptation may be even stronger than in Dōgen's time. It is easy to collect quotes, memorize teachings, and speak confidently about Buddhism. It is easy to create the appearance of wisdom. But appearances are not practice. Dōgen repeatedly reminds us that the way is not about building an identity. It is about letting go of identity. If our practice becomes another way of making ourselves look important, then we have missed the point. Ironically, the more concerned we are with appearing spiritual, the further we move from genuine practice. And true practice is usually much quieter than that. It means showing up every day, sitting down, paying attention, meeting our thoughts honestly, treating others with kindness, beginning again when we fail. None of these things look particularly impressive, but this is where the Buddha way is lived. Dōgen also tells us to learn from the examples of those who came before us. That is very different from trying to imitate their appearance. We can admire the old masters without pretending to be one. We can follow their example without copying their mannerisms. The point is not to become another Dōgen. The point is to practice as sincerely as Dōgen practiced. There is a humility in this teaching that I find deeply refreshing. Dōgen doesn't tell us to become extraordinary. He doesn't tell us to impress anyone. He doesn't even tell us to become scholars. He simply tells us to give ourselves completely to the practice before us. Perhaps that is why this short passage feels so timeless. It reminds us that the Buddha way is not something we perform. It is something we live, not through appearances, not through accumulating knowledge, but through the quiet ordinary work of practicing day after day. And maybe that is enough. Thank you for listening. Until next time.